I'm just going to open up.
So, you ready?
Yes.
I love that smile, I've got to say. I love that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this birthday special edition of an In Conversation With. And today I am joined by Caroline Flynn, who is someone that I've known for a while now. And I've been dying to get an In Conversation With recorded. But so for the birthday, we've made that special effort to make sure that it can happen. So Caroline, hi, welcome to In Conversation With.
Hi, and it's really wonderful to be here. And likewise, I've been looking for this opportunity to have this discussion with you at some point, although we have many.
Yeah, and we just haven't had a chance to actually sit down and get a recording done for these episodes. So I'm absolutely grateful for the time today. But for those that don't know about your work and what you do, why don't you give people a chance just to get to know you a little bit?
Okay, well, thank you. Well, basically, for those that don't know me, I'm the creator and the developer of the MAAP LinkIndex QR code resource keyring. Lots of different names there, but basically it's a QR code resource keyring. My training is social work, and I've been in social work now for just over 15 years. But prior to social work, I was working in the voluntary sector. I managed a foyer for 16 to 25-year-olds for 8 years, and prior to that was mental health, and prior to that was I was working within domestic abuse, learning difficulties, dual diagnosis, mental health with learning difficulties. So I've got quite a broad background in terms of knowledge, both within the voluntary sector and statutory sector in regards to safeguarding. What I identified en route in many, many areas, actually even prior to statutory, was that no one had a centralised location for resources. And with when I was in the foyer, I had to develop resources, and I had to write programs for training, for finances, for funding. And also what I noticed that the main barrier was money in terms of advertising awareness of training programs. So I was writing a training program when another service provider was also writing a training program. So there was lots of duplication. And because we didn't have the funding to advertise and they did, they were filling and we weren't. So money to me became a barrier, but also the lack of awareness. So it wasn't through lack of needed placements. It was lack of awareness, Dave. And I found that this was something that just kept creeping up in all of the work that I was doing. And then when I was working, my training is in Northern Ireland, and that's where most of I've been here since 95. So that's where a lot of my work has been. But then when I went over to the UK, what I identified is that I kept going to the same person like 10 or 20 times to say, do you know where this is, or do you know where that is? And it kind of gets a bit embarrassing.
Yeah. And I think you've got such a depth of knowledge and experience from that voluntary understanding right the way through to statutory engagement. And I think it's one of the things that when we look at the way resources are made available to service providers, to service users, to clients, and to professionals in both social care and in the therapy arena, there is such a mismatch of information, but also of where to go for that.
Definitely. And since I've put the keyring together, I'm overwhelmed at the amount of resources that are actually out there for us. Like to the point where I'm sat back sometimes thinking, why aren't we given these resources at university? Why aren't we as families aware of these resources that are out there? And a very example, when I was working in adult safeguarding in the hospital, and then I was working in the midwifery department, children's services in the safeguarding in the hospital, the staff in the hospital weren't even aware of the NHS safeguarding. their own website.
It's all, I'm laughing, but it's out of shock. And
And, but they're not even aware of, I mean, even as social workers, we're not aware of the Family Information Service, the FIS, that's government agendaed, and that resource in every single locality, they have their own Family Information Service, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, and I know that there's 3 or 4 key ones. I mean, the NHS not even the safeguarding, but the NHS safeguarding platform is one that I'd recommend for all professionals to go on anyway, like with yourself and the people that are accredited to your service as well, Dave. That the NHS, that is phenomenal, their support, but also their website, and their website is actually broken down into so many different things you wouldn't be aware of, actually, the enormity of the information that's on there. Then you've got the NSPCC, which again is, now I think obviously the difference with these people and with me is they've got government funding. I'm very walking along, you know, and I don't even think it's been a challenge, because I've been quite fortunate in terms of the fact that this has been something that's been really, really needed, a centralized location for multiple resources. Because whilst, you know, all of these organizations, they have their own resources, they can't really focus on the volume that I can focus on, because I'm very much independent. Also, having the experiences in different genres, I've been able to think, well, actually, I wish I had that, or I wish I knew that, or I wish. So it comes very much from a personal journey as well as of a need.
And it's that understanding what gaps have been in that learning process and that delivery experience. And for a lot of people, the concept of safeguarding is daunting at best and overwhelming at worst. So in kind of bite-sized chunk, how would you describe safeguarding, and then kind of maybe looking and give us some information around how you see the therapeutic support for safeguarding playing out?
I think, to be honest, I think that all professions look at it very independently, and they look at it, we're working in isolation, and we all think that. You know, when I look at the therapeutic world, I think, oh my goodness, I couldn't touch that because I don't understand it. We all think that, but in reality, safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. And the therapeutic world has no different responsibility than mine, other than obviously mine would be statutory, because that's where I'm in. But at the same time, in terms of recognizing, in terms of roles and responsibilities, it's exactly the same. And I think there's many tools out there. What's happening is that we're not accessing because we don't know that they're there. The Royal College of Physicians, their website is, when they've got some absolutely amazing safeguarding resources, the children's, the adults, and it's all broken down, and it's literally in bite-sized chunks. I couldn't recommend it more. I'll send you the link.
And what we'll do is we'll put the links into the details on the YouTube description when we post the video out, so everyone will be able to see all of the links and go directly to that. But I really do want to kind of highlight that you could spend hours going through Google looking for one piece of information.
I know.
And for our members, for therapeutic professionals that have yet to become members, one of the things that I really do advocate, and we've done this when we've done retreats, and we've made sure that everybody knows about the QR codes, and they all have that information, because I think what you've done is remarkable in the sense of, on a keyring, you don't even have to get your laptop out. You can get, I think you've got something like nearly 1,000, am I right? It's nearly 1,000 pieces of resource information behind those codes.
It's actually more. It's 1,200, because we counted. We did a count the other day. But I think what it is that when I put the categories together, I very much focus on, one, your learning as a practitioner. So if your therapists say, I don't really know about CSE or modern day slavery, and also what we've got to move away from is the fear of saying, I don't know. because the reality is it's humanly impossible, but we criticize ourselves for that. You know, and we've got to move and actually embrace the opportunity to say, I don't know. And think, yeah, actually, let's discuss what I don't know, because there's thousands of other people that don't know.
Yeah.
And
It's that opportunity for joint learning.
yes.
And, you know, I've seen it in the social care arena through the work we do with the Community Learning Hive. And I've seen it in the therapy and the coaching world. As soon as you actually say to somebody you're working with, I don't know, but let's find out together.
Absolutely.
The power of that connection is phenomenal. And I think what you've done in using your own experience and that of the team around you and those that you've worked with over the years to build up, what are those gaps? How can we smooth that over is remarkable.
And when we go back to safeguarding, the tools that I'd be recommending are, one is the key ring. That's a must. But also, what I would say is any local authority, every local authority that you work in, they do have their own family information service. But besides that, go onto your local authority's website and pick up their threshold documents. Every local authority has the same threshold, although some are slightly worded different. But the reality is, in terms of thresholds, they're all the same. And when we talk about thresholds, what we're looking at is the like, do we have to respond now, or you know, that we put them into different categories? Can it be early help? Now we are focusing very, very much now on early help, because what we are recognizing is that early intervention saves lives, and really it's the key to working with people. But also, I think the thing is as a therapist, what I'd be saying to anybody, well, even anybody really, is that when you look at the threshold document, it's very clear, and it's usually split up into physical, emotional, you know, all the different categories that we consider. And then what you do is you think, well, actually, is it in that category? And it's broken down. It is broken down into segments. So you will see the category that it fits into. And when what I always say to someone is that if you are in any doubt, obviously speak to the local authority. But sometimes what happens is that the local authority will say it hasn't met threshold. And then what happens is then the practitioner who's identified safeguarding feels very anxious, which is normal. So then what you do, my recommendation is to revisit the threshold documents and then reconsider, look at it from the perspective of what the social worker is telling you. If you still are very, very concerned, then go onto their intranet or whatever it is, pick up their referral and write in the referral. So you post in the referral via email. Because the thing is that, you know, sometimes what I have identified as well is that different people view threshold very differently.
It's very much an interpretation.
Yes.
And for therapeutic professionals who aren't used to the local authority arena, when somebody comes into our world who their disclosures, their communication, even their body language can put up red flags. And sometimes it's about, yes, check the threshold, but that interpretation may still not be there. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that therapeutic professionals and coaches had the opportunity to touch base with one of the social care navigators, so they can actually sound that out and get a gauge, but also then get advice about that referral, understanding, you know, if this is something where someone's disclosing abuse within the system, as an example, and we've seen that recently kind of come through more and more, then just picking up the phone and speaking to social services without that pre-information can actually cause more damage to both your client, your own reputation as a professional, because you're going at it blind. And having information forewarned is forearmed.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, it's almost like I've been speaking about it for some weeks, but it's almost like the blind spot, isn't it? It's like, oh gosh, you know, where, you know, and how do we move forward with that? There's also the Family Rights Group. Their website is phenomenal in terms of child protection. Also, it gives, like, there's a pyramid example, and it gives you different categories in terms of threshold and what it actually means. And it's also a very good tool if you are working with the family to actually say, right, let's have a look at this. And I think for a lot of people, it's about having those open discussions, because I think safeguarding is almost like a taboo word. It's like,
Yeah.
I need to refer you. And then all of a sudden you think, am I going to lose this client? Am I going to? But in fact, it's the openness that will keep you together.
Yeah.
Because it's honesty.
And it is that congruent communication of what we do know, what we don't know, find out the bits that we don't know, be forewarned, but be open about the fact that actually I don't want to create a situation where the client is saying one thing and I don't know how to support them with that.
Yeah.
Because everything must be client-led. The therapeutic arena is very, very protective of making sure that if the client wants to proceed, then the client has the tools to do that. But if the therapist if the coach, if the mental health advisor doesn't have that know-how of what happens once you make that step, once that client says, right, I'm going to disclose this and I'm going to elevate the situation, the support, they, as the professional, become part of that support network by default.
Yeah.
And certainly with CSE, that child sexual exploitation arena, the wrong information in that support network can be critical to the forward process and progress of working with that client. So getting it right within the support network becomes absolutely vital. And I think anyone who is receiving or potentially receiving those kinds of disclosures, they need to be able to be open with themselves about what they can and cannot move forward on.
And I think as well is it's really, really important that you don't lead it. Yeah. It's like, because our interpretation of what they're saying might not be what they're saying. So it's really important to say, did you mean this or did you mean that? I mean, the thing is, if you feel it's a disclosure, really you can't lead it any further than that. Yeah. What you have to say is, look, I have a duty of care, I have a responsibility, and then perhaps show them the tools, so they don't have to hold it themselves. They can say to the person, look, this is why, I do have a duty of care and it is for you, in terms of that safeguarding. Because I think sometimes what happens is that automatics, like you take a deep breath, it's like, oh my God, I've got to make a referral because it's scary. And sadly, societal's interpretation of social care is so wrong, and it's so unfortunate what's happened to our profession, really.
And I think in a lot of respects, the therapeutic sector and the social care sector have kind of gone down very similar public perception roads that are so far removed from the reality of what's actually going on within those worlds. And partly it's self-inflicted, let's be completely honest. If people don't stand up within our sectors and say, no, not in my name, then it's very easy for the sector to rumble on down a road that we might not be comfortable with. And I think that's true in some part in both professions. What would you say is the key kind of component when you're looking at engaging with the therapeutic sector from the social care? What kind of stands out? What are you looking for from the therapeutic sector when they're working with somebody that you have within social care?
I mean, I think obviously reputation, and the thing for myself, it would be, their their registration and things like that they are accredited, or they're someone of substance. Because ultimately I think that for myself, there is a lot of professionals that are out there that actually aren't what they say they are in terms of their their value.
Mm.
And I think that, you know, and that's not just in the counselling, that can be in all sectors really. But I think for myself, you know, we've got to move away from this, oh, but they seem really nice. Oh, but they seem, because I hear this so much, you know, and even with the exploitation, I've heard the young person's hanging around with, oh, but she's a teacher. Oh, but she's this. Oh, but it doesn't matter. You know, I don't care. Everyone's nice. Everyone has the potential to be nice. And a lot of people are opportunists if that's what they want to do. But with counselling, for myself, it's their reputation. And also for myself, is someone that's very transparent and open, and that they're willing to connect. But one thing I think that is, when we make the recommendation to counselling, I think that the family or the young person thinks we're then going to be saying, what are they saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that initial contract is very, very clear that we do not breach your confidentiality.
Yeah.
You're here independently, and it's kind of, you're coming as a recommendation. But we need more therapists. That's without a shadow of a doubt. When you're looking at waiting lists, when you're looking at competence levels of therapists, I know the therapists that are going through your system, they do have to go through a process. So knowing your organisation the way I know it, I would have no hesitation in making a recommendation for your counsellors. But I think what happens is you get the ones that are really well known and they get the contract.
Yeah.
But the ones that aren't, almost are sort of like stood on lay-by, and it's kind of, well, actually, we could be utilising all of this. But again, that goes back to why I developed the keyring. There's thousands of resources out there, Dave, that aren't being used.
And this is where I think the art of collaboration, the art of open communication really does kind of play its key. And it's why we wanted to make sure that every one of our members is in a position where they can engage with the commissioning teams within their local area. Because the membership, for those that you know are watching this that haven't actually kind of got a gauge of APA yet, because you know obviously it may be the first one of the In Conversation episodes that they're watching. The APA membership is the only membership in the UK where every single member that applies for whatever membership category will have a conversation of discovery. They will sit down with a qualified member who's been through our accreditation training process and have that direct conversation. This is not a paperwork exercise. This is a chance for people to actually get to know how we interact under pressure. And that is exactly the environment in which the therapeutic process starts. So for social workers who are looking for professionals, and you know, thank you very much for the endorsement on the members already accredited. But for any social worker that is looking for a therapeutic professional, looking for a qualified accredited member from APA means that, one, you know that they've had that conversation, you know the interaction basis of the therapeutic process has already been checked, and it's been checked by ourselves, not by you know someone who's been trained to look at an essay and a set of tick boxes. But that's why you know that's there. That's you know that's why I think the members that are already there stand so strongly in your mind. When you've got that relationship in place, so we've got a referral coming from social care to a therapeutic professional. The confidentialities boundaries are laid out as we specify in our starter packs to all of our members. We have all of the kind of note taking, everything else that goes on during the process. Can you reassure the members and the therapeutic professionals about the level of information that you're looking for during that process in relation to things like the case reviews, looking at kind of the progress throughout somebody's time with social care?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, Dave, is that I'm not in commissioning. So in terms of that understanding, my understanding would be very limited. So I think if any commissioning social workers out there watching me, they're probably thinking, you know, what is she saying? I don't know that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say to any therapeutic worker is to do your research as well, because, you know, I've come out of university as a social worker. You're a therapist, or what you do, and you've got Siobhan as a psychotherapist, so you've got all of that skill set, and I think that is just what you come out with. Then you build on that, you know, and then, you know, you become your expertise in whatever area that you go to. But I think it can be very generic in your understanding. But I think the difficulty is that what I've seen is a lot of organizations close down, but it's not through lack of need, it's lack of awareness that actually we have this amazing resource out there. And like yourselves, I think that you have this resource out there that could service so many local authorities. But how do you knock at that door? How do you say to them, actually, we're here? Because it shouldn't just be the big players that are getting the commission.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the kind of the growth that the organisation's going under, of all the times to have a call come through, it will cut off in a second. It'll divert through to Siobhan, so that will ring out. The whole process, that once you've got that engagement, social care is not going to be asking for your weekly or your monthly notes around what's happening with that. And I think that's something that scares a lot of professionals, about how much engagement does the referring professional want kind of moving it forward.
When you look at your rights, you have a right to private life, you know, and we can't, you know, that's in legislation. We can't go against that, your rights to private life. I mean, the only time, obviously, which is what this very essence of the conversation is in regards to safeguarding, that is the only time that information would have to be shared. I mean, obviously, in terms of if it was court directed, I don't know, so that's out of my area. Now I know that it can be court directed. All I'd say to any professional is just to make sure that you write everything down. It's kind of, and you don't miss anything, because ultimately you are accountable at that point if you are called to court. But at the same time, you write your notes anyway, you know, and you have a duty of care in terms of your GDPR as everybody else does.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's I think it's that having that confidence that you don't have social care looking into the room. And that's vital, that professionals are aware of that. And I can't think of any situation, and you know, think over 30 years, almost 40 years, that I've had contact with the social care arena. That's a long time. I can't think of a time where there's been any requirement, court-led or otherwise, where a professional therapeutic practitioner has been asked to open up the door. It's been specific questions about specific environments, and that's it. And I think a lot of professionals are wary of engaging with social care because of that misperception. So laying that to one side, laying to one side that commissioning is something that can be reached by individual practitioners. There is nothing stopping an individual practitioner reaching out to the commissioning team in their local area and saying, just want to let you know, here I am, this is what I do, this is where I am, and this is the safety net that I have with my accreditation body.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I would encourage that, because I feel that there's lots of authorities that I've worked in, and we are sat there thinking, who's out there? You know, with all the cuts, we're very, very limited then to actually understand who is out there, because the big people that we used to go to, they've been so severely cut. You've seen the cuts, we've all seen the cuts. And like I keep saying to everybody, it's not through lack of need, it's lack of awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that if we embrace that opportunity and share, actually, look, this is what I do. I'm in your local area, and this is my expertise, and this is how I would fulfill your needs. I mean, look at their most recent Ofsted report. Look at where the deficits are. Look at how you can sit into that or fit into that somehow.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you know, lots of authorities are failing, although that's a story that's for a different day, because I do get passionate.
We could be here on that one until the Voyager spacecraft returns. It's a massive topic, and it's something that, you know, both of us are extremely passionate about, you know, and for me, I think it's something that there's been a lot said already. But when we look at what we can do collectively, one of the things that we've spoken about in the past is the support network that is built up around a young person's kind of review status, or review process, probably a better word. And I think for a lot of professionals that aren't aware of how social care works, it might be worth explaining how they can connect with that review process.
As in the child protection review?
Yes, that's the one.
Oh, right. So we've got the child protection meeting, and then we have a review, or both?
I think it's worth for those that might be watching to kind of explain both, because if they are working with a young person who is connected to social care, then understanding how that sequence runs will, I think, be useful.
Okay. Firstly, in terms of that, to gain a greater understanding outside of my knowledge, you can also go onto the family rights group. Absolutely phenomenal. They will outline our whole role. Also, Coram Bath, they outline everything very clearly. You also have anyway, I will give you some links to actually support understanding in regards to that. Now, when we put when we send out the invites to the people attending the conference, that's very much based on the core network of support for that family or that young person. Now, it could be that they might say, I don't want my therapist to attend, and the therapist could then be asked, could you send a report through? Now, that is not based on the sessions. That could be just something like, yeah, really engaging really, really well. We think we're moving forward. You know, it doesn't mean that you've got to go to your notes and think, oh my God, what do I write here? There still is that confidentiality, you know, but it could just literally be they're engaging really well, attended all sessions, you know, but again, sorry.
I was just going to say, just that information within that setting, receiving that kind of information, it might be the only positive engagement that young person is presenting.
And the thing around that is when you look at the contextualized safeguarding model, that is what we're integrating into practice. And like you say, all of us actually have a real key part to play. Now, whether that means that young person or family are primarily only engaging with the therapist, fabulous, because they're engaging. You know, so when you look at the contextual safeguarding model, it's working. You know,
and having that layering of information makes it so much easier for you guys to work and plan.
Yes, and I think as well is that it's the knowledge, because as you said, when we open the meet, our discussion, really, it is about connection. And if they're connecting, we know connecting with someone promotes change, some level of change, because you feel secure. And when you feel secure, you'll talk. You know, so I think that's so important. You know, how you connect. I don't know about yourself, but I know through my journey as a therapist, I went through loads before I got the one I liked. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, to hear on a piece of paper, a young person's been seeing their therapist 8 sessions. Wow. I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Does that therapist really need to tell me any more?
No. And I think the process that social care goes through is something that is very systemic in a lot of ways. And for a therapeutic professional, that can feel very far removed from the person-centered approach. And I know that social care are working really, really hard at increasing that person-centered point of focus. And I know it's something that you've kind of made a bedrock of your career, is making sure that that child's voice is heard right from the very get-go. So the child protection meeting happens. You get an input from a therapeutic professional that kind of gives the overview that you described. What's the process work that can go from there?
I think the thing is that, I mean, what I have to highlight is someone could be there for 8 sessions but not engaging. So it really is important to get that level of engagement, because that's what's needed, but they're not engaging. So we've got to look at whether the value of that input. It could be that there's a slow process, because sometimes trauma can hold you back slightly from forming those important relationships. So that can take a couple of weeks, and we're aware of that. So in terms of any intervention that we put in, we are aware that you've got to give initially a few weeks of building up those relationships. So I think for the therapist is that there's no rush on our side, absolutely not. But at the same time, I'm also quite mindful of the fact that what usually happens is that we would say, right, 10 sessions or 8 sessions or whatever, but then we've got to look at a cause for an extension. Dave, I'm sorry, but I've gone off that question. What did you ask me? Sorry, I so easily do that. I go off and about.
I've heard that out of your lips multiple times over the time we've known each other. Once you've got the CP meeting is done, and the value of that input is there, and I think it is worth pointing out that there isn't a rush in those early sessions, and that social care generally does appreciate that it can take time to build that up. So if that meeting comes right at the beginning of that process, and it's a case of, this is hard work, we're still not getting there. It's not a case of, okay, well, that's going to drop those sessions. It's about understanding the value of the process. And I think having confidence that social care is understanding that is value in itself. What's there are kind of overall processes that you guys will go through that keep that connection with the therapeutic arena. So the CP meeting is one. What tends to come after that for those kind of engagements?
You would have something called the core group meeting. So once you've had your initial child protection case conference, you have to meet within 10 days to formulate that plan. So you look at what the risks are, then you formulate your plan and who's going to be doing what type of thing. Now, if it's CCE or CSE, within regards to the contextual safeguarding model, it could be that the young person is only engaging with the therapist. So it would be that how they're getting on. That's it. We can't go into too much detail. But also, because what we identify is the key lead worker. So that doesn't necessarily, because some young people come along and say, I don't want a social worker near me, which is fine. Sadly, I think we need to do a lot of work around that, but we'll go back to what we're talking about. So I think that if there was a key lead and it was the therapeutic worker, that's fine. But we would also, we'd have to work closely, especially if it was CSE and things like that. But what I would recommend any therapeutic worker is if the key issue was around something like that, then please learn about it, because you're not expected to know everything. That's literally humanly impossible. So if a social worker was to ring and say, look, do you know all about this? It's okay to say no. I don't know about it, but I'm going to go away and learn.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, how do we, CSC, there's modern day slavery, we've got cocooning, there's exploitation, there's all of these things which, although have been known for many years, but we've got names to them.
Yeah.
So in terms of that understanding, where did we even begin with our learning? So it's really, really important that all we do is we just keep learning. You know, and like with the contextual safeguarding model, Carol Furman, her website is absolutely phenomenal. Just watch 2 of her videos and you'll get it.
And this is the thing, I think, that the therapeutic arena can understand the trauma, it can understand the processes of adjusting responses, but by understanding the connection that then that has with the statutory arena and the child protection arena, makes it just gives a depth and a strength to the knowledge that they have that allows for that joint working when no client lives in a bubble. And I think when you've got a client that is engaging with social care, it is vital that there is that joint and that shared knowledge. And again, I think it's one of the things that the QR codes really do help, because you can literally spend hours trying to find the right piece of information. And you've done all the hard work for us. It's brilliant.
And I think as well is that, you know, there are safety plans out there. And one of the things that I was very, very keen to promote as well is the duplication of work. Like, you know, there are safety plans around domestic abuse. There are safety plans around CSE. There's safety plans around so many different arenas. I mean, there's organizations out there that have been working in these fields for hundreds of years, and they have the resources they've put out there, Dave, are absolutely phenomenal. Like, Children's Society, they've got a safety plan for CSE, and it's brilliant. But who would know as a practitioner that actually I'm going to pop onto Children's Society and have a look at that? There's another safeguarding safety plan on there for domestic abuse. You know, so we can't keep rewriting what's already out there. We have to get smarter with our time, and also smarter when thinking, right, okay, I need to learn that and I need to learn this and this. But these dialogues are so important, because I think there's so much out there for us to continually learn. And even when you're looking at COVID-19, look at the enormity of the impact that's going to have already.
You've seen yourself the rise of PTSD within social care. It's frightening how those that are in these arenas, the frontline workers, who somehow our systems have generally kind of gone, well, this is what they do, so they'll be fine. No, trauma doesn't go, you dealt with my brother yesterday, right, okay, I'll see you later then. It doesn't do that. It says, I'm coming. I don't care who you are. I'm going to take you over if I can. But COVID's done the same.
And I think that's the thing with trauma, isn't it? It's like I said earlier, it's not measurable, and our interpretation and how we hold that in our bodies, the body keeps the score, is so unique.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that we, you know, because for some people they can say, well, I didn't bother me. Well, I don't care if it didn't bother you. It's bothered them.
Yeah.
Let me connect and be there for that person. And I think that's the key in so much of what we do. But sadly, it's interpretation.
And again, the empowerment that I believe comes from working with really good therapeutic professionals who really do understand Carl Rogers' core principles, that congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard. If those 3 things are in place in any professional, all of a sudden the connections start to fire off. And whether that's a social care professional who has that congruence, empathy, and UPR, or it's a therapeutic professional, without it, something is always going to be missing from the connection.
And I think for myself as well is I remember reading the Carl Rogers, and I remember doing my training and counselling. So I do remember some years ago, and obviously in terms of integrating that into practice, it's very different. But I don't think you ever lose those core principles, really.
Yeah.
But I think that now we've got the ACEs, and now we have the trauma-informed practice. And I think that that is changing practice on so many different levels, because I think that that one-to-one, that congruence and that person-centered is key.
Yeah.
That's almost like a skill, but then it's the knowledge set in terms of you supporting that family. If, do you know what I mean? It's like, because I think that there's an assumption made, but now we're looking at the ACEs and trauma-informed practice, and you have Gabor Mate, you have Nadine Burke, and Vincent Folletti, who did the initial study. When you look at that pattern and that journey, it's not what we've not known. It's now it's got a name, and it's how we integrate that into practice to get the best, you know, because families do matter. You know, that's what we're all working towards, that connection and that promotion of change, really. And we are agents of change. We're all doing the same, regardless of what role. We are social agents of change.
And that is an absolutely beautiful point, I think, to come to a close on. The therapeutic sector is very much a social agent for change. Social care is the social agent for change, but also that protection for that social change. And I think it's that kind of collaboration between the two, that if we can keep evolving together and we can keep moving together, then all of a sudden we're actually in a place where we can support those in need the most effectively.
And one thing I would say as well is, like, I've spoken to nurses, I've spoken to GPs, I've spoken to police, I've spoken to yourselves and therapeutic workers, to reassure everybody we're all saying the same thing. And this is the irony of it, is that actually we're all working towards the same aim, you know. And when I look at some resources that are out there, there's even one for school nurses, and that website will blow you away. I mean, I will send you some of these links, but if only we then recognised, actually, because I never knew about health visiting websites, I never knew about school nursing websites, I didn't know about the NHS until I went on my journey of discovery in regards to resources. And I can honestly, confidently say to you, it's changed my practice without a shadow of a doubt. To be honest, I've got a bit too much knowledge for everything, do you know what I mean? But it's kind of, I'd rather have too much to promote my professional curiosity than not have enough, because I think that it's so easy to miss something. But also, what I would say on the final note is, it's okay to say I don't know. You know, we have to encourage these discussions.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for your time today.
I
think, you know, I smile more in these episodes than I pretty much do in any other kind of structured hour-long session that I have just recently. So I'm absolutely delighted to have been able to kind of share your experience and your knowledge with those that are watching this. I hope anyone that has gained information from this that's going to help them will go to the APA website, download the CPD verification document, get CPD registered, get registered for this this benefit, because we all need to carry on growing. And I think what Caroline has put available, and with the links that will be attached to the video, there is a huge amount of support there for therapeutic professionals and social care professionals that are watching this. So for everyone at home, I'm going to leave Caroline one last comment, and then I'll end the episode.
And brilliant, thank you so much. And all I'd say to anybody is, I don't know everything, but if I can ever support in anything, then just ask. There's no agenda there. I'm genuinely sincere in that offer, because I know when I need to know something, you need to know. you know, and it makes you feel vulnerable, and that's not what we're about. We're here, we care, you know, and this is why it's so important that these connections happen. So I'm more than grateful for the opportunity to have this discussion with you, and thank you so much, Dave.
You're absolutely welcome. The links to MAAP and to Caroline, as well as some additional resources, will be made available on the link in this episode. So for everyone out there, wherever you are, I hope you have a great day. I hope you'll be joining us at 4 o'clock on the 4th, and have a great day. Have fun now. Bye for now.
Thank you.